Howdy folks, welcome to the info dump for the 12th of September. Sorry about my voice, I'm a little bit sick today. First up is news that the indie crowd-funded spiritual successor to Castlevania, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, has unfortunately been delayed. For fans, mainly myself, this is quite disheartening news as the game was expected to release mid-2017. But in a recent developers update, Koji Igarashi, the lead developer of the hack-and-slash platformer, stated that he will be adding a secondary development team to the project as to ensure that the game comes out as properly as he envisioned. The game, though, will unfortunately have to be moved back halfway through 2018. This isn't a real surprise, as most Kickstarter projects nowadays, and even large AAA development games, need to be pushed back to either improve the game or to bring it closer to the launch of a new system. I'm looking at you, Breath of the Wild. Personally, as a huge fan of this game and what it's become so far, this just makes me even more antsy to get my hands on this gothic beast. But I guess I can wait 2 years. Now let's look at some crazy sale figures. The latest expansion for the now 12-year-old MMO World of Warcraft has dropped, and already in the first 24 hours, it's drummed up an astonishing 3.3 million in retail sales for the fantasy multiplayer behemoth. Yeah, that's it. That's topic. Lastly, PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, has asked Giant Software, the developers behind the popular Farming Simulator series, to implement slaughterhouses to go along with the new pig farming features added to Farming Simulator 17. Harriet Barclay, the British liaison for PETA, sent a letter to the game's studio stating, and I quote, "Following the announcement that Farming Simulator 17 will depict pig farming, we are writing to encourage you to include video footage from abattoirs into the game, to simulate the farming industry's accuracy. Farming 17 would need to show all aspects of pig farming, including what happens when they're sent to the slaughter." The letter also inclines that players should have the option to become vegan farmers. Well folks, that's me with the gaming news. Now let's say hello to, well, me again with tech. First up, we have a quick Sony update. Sony this week announced their next console in the PlayStation lineup, the PlayStation Pro. So far, fan reactions have been skeptical at best, with paid updates and only being around 6% more powerful than its predecessor. This, along with a long list of other recent poor decisions by Sony, is not looking good, as their only saving grace will be the Xmas holiday sales. Now let's look at some Samsung news. The Galaxy Note S is receiving a tsunami of negative PR and hate as thousands upon thousands of customers demand refunds for the device over the tiny issue of the phone literally exploding like a Molotov cocktail. Yes, you heard it from me. Samsung's new smartphone is the equivalent to a firework in your pocket. The issue seems to be due to the shoddily constructed nature of the phone's lithium battery, which, when put under enough heat, say due to charging or sitting in a hot vehicle, will react with the volatile chemicals in the battery and cause the device to erupt into an acidic ball of flames. Samsung has responded to the news quite bluntly, stating that people should back up, wipe, and return the Galaxy Note 7s, and they'll be exchanged with a different model. Many government health agencies, including the FAA and American Airlines Board, have issued statements to Samsung and have asked that these devices not be brought or charged on their aircraft, stored in pockets, vehicles, bags, and just any other place of interest. As well, they should be immediately returned to their place of purchase. Have you bought one of these little death traps? And if so, leave your last will and testament in the comments below. And if you're already dead, get your next of kin to hit that subscribe button. Now on to David with entertainment.
Thanks CJ, and welcome everyone to entertainment. Well, if you know comic books, you've probably heard the name Alan Moore thrown around a few times. The famous comic book writer known for such classics as The Killing Joke, V for Vendetta, Swamp Thing, and Watchmen is finally retiring. While speaking at a press conference in London to promote his novel Jerusalem, Moore said this about his future in comics. "There are a couple of issues of an Avatar book that I am doing at the moment. Part of the H.P. Lovecraft I've been working on recently. Me and Kevin will be finishing Cinema Purgatorio, and we've got about one more book, a final book of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen to complete. After that, although I may do odd little comic pieces at some point in the future, I am pretty much done with comics." Moore explained that he felt comfortable in the comic book medium. I think I have done enough for comics. I've done all that I can. I think if I were to continue to work in comics, inevitably the ideas would suffer. Inevitably, you'd start to see me retread old ground, and I think both you and I probably deserve something better than that. What will Moore focus on creatively now? He says, the things that interest me at the moment are the things I don't know if I can do, like films, where I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, or giant literary novels. Things I wasn't sure I'd even have the stamina to finish. I know I am able to do anything anyone is capable of doing in the comic book medium, and I don't need to prove anything to myself or anyone else, whereas these other fields are much more exciting to me. I will always revere comics as a medium. It's such a wonderful medium. Moore shifted gears a tad and talked about superhero movies and what current creators should be striving for. I am sure there is probably a very good reason for the hundreds of thousands of adults who are flocking to see the latest adventures of Batman, but I for one am a little in the dark for what this reason is. The superhero movies, characters that were invented by Jack Kirby in the 1960s or earlier, I have a great love for those characters, as they were to me when I was a 13-year-old boy. They were brilliantly designed and created characters, but they were for 50 years ago. I think this century needs, or deserves, its own culture. It deserves artists that are actually going to attempt to say things that are relevant to the times we're actually living in. That's a long-winded way of me saying I am really, really sick of Batman. Moore does seem to leave the door open for some special comic book projects in the future, but he seems bent on tackling new challenges. Moore has often been a very vocal critic of the movie-making business when it comes to adapting Moore's comic book works to the big screen. It will be interesting to see what happens when Moore takes on his own shot at making films. On now to more Marvel news. A screenshot of the production of Avengers Infinity War has been leaked. The movie will be filmed over an arduous 9 months and is said to contain like a million different characters we've seen in the MCU over the past few years. A logistical nightmare for sure, but the Russo brothers have proved themselves with Civil War, so they're more than likely up to the task. And now all us fans have to do is play the waiting game. Posted to Facebook, the photo that you see here is a snippet that shows the Russo brothers interacting with our favourite purple villain, Thanos, who will be played by Josh Brolin. Thanos has been long awaited by fans to take on our mighty heroes of Earth, and now it looks like he's more ready for his close-up than ever. It's been very exciting to know that this is it, the final battle on the big screen, the ultimate test of brain and brawn. The photo does confirm that Thanos will be brought to life with motion capture and not traditional makeup and special effects. Either way, I absolutely cannot wait. Josh Brolin better deliver. And lastly today, more superheroes, specifically DC. When Warner Bros. Debuted their film Man of Steel, it was supposed to be the start of the DC Extended Universe, much like Marvel had been crushing it for 3 years beforehand. DC was going to make legit superhero movies. Unfortunately, DC has had some growing pains during their superhero uprising. While their sale figures have been successful, many disagree with either the story or the ending, but all fans agree that DC is just making their films too dark. No humour or no moments of levity. They just take the whole thing a little too seriously. But it's been announced that the Justice League movie won't be as dark or as gritty as previous DC films have been. It seems that DC have been listening to the fans and they're finally pulling their finger out. Part of that course correction was to get themselves a Kevin Feige. Feige is pretty much the showrunner of Marvel and helps steer the film universe, plan it out, hire the best people, and make it as successful as it can be. Warner Bros. Has always had themselves a Feige, and they made the correct decision to bring him over from the comics to the film. With the promotion of Geoff Johns from DC Comics Chief Creative Officer to President of DC, Johns has lived and breathed comics for quite some time, writing for many characters. Johns is the best person suited for making the films more like the comics. Johns recently talked about the criticism of Batman vs Superman by saying, "Mistakenly in the past, I think the studio has said, oh, DC films are gritty and dark and that's what makes them different. But that couldn't be more wrong. It's a hopeful and optimistic view of life. Even Batman has a glimmer of that in him. If he didn't think he'd make tomorrow better, he'd just stop." Going forward, DC films have a more optimistic view. Johns also states that the upcoming Justice League will address the murder Batman we see in Batman vs Superman, and how his character will have an evolution and become more hopeful than he was depicted in the previous film. Justice League is set to release sometime 2017. Please, please don't fuck it up. Please. And well, everybody, that's going to do it for this week. Give us your feedback on the topics we've discussed down there in the comments. And as always, from all of us here at Awesome Productions, stay awesome.